If you ever stood on a platform on the East Coast Main Line in the early 2000s, expecting to see a familiar Class 91 and Mark IV set roll in, but instead watched a full-length Eurostar glide past, you weren't imagining things. For a brief and very strange moment in British railway history, a train designed to race through the Channel Tunnel was running domestic services up and down the East Coast Main Line. This is the story of Eurostar Class 373, Unit 373305, also known as Set 3305/3306. A train built for international travel that never crossed the Channel in passenger service, yet became one of the most unusual expresses Britain has ever seen. Back in the early 1990s, as the Channel Tunnel was nearing completion, Eurostar planners had an ambitious vision. They didn't just want trains from London to Paris and Brussels. They wanted international services from the regions, places like Manchester, Leeds, York, and even Scotland, running straight through to mainland Europe. This idea became known as Regional Eurostar. To make that possible, a small fleet of shorter Eurostar sets was built. These were the Class 373 north of London units. They were still proper Eurostars, just shorter than the main international sets, designed to fit British platforms north of London. Each one had 14 vehicles and around 558 seats, offering long-distance comfort on a serious scale. One of those sets was 373305, but the grand plan never came together. The economics were difficult, border controls outside London were complex, and budget airlines were rapidly changing how people travelled across Europe. Regional Eurostar quietly faded away before it ever properly began. The trains existed, but the routes didn't. So Eurostar was left with a small group of expensive high-speed trains that had no international role. That's when GNER stepped in. In 2000, Great North Eastern Railway leased a pair of these unused Eurostar sets to work domestic services from London King's Cross. The concept was branded White Rose, named after the symbol of Yorkshire. Initially, the trains ran between King's Cross and York, later extending through to Leeds. The set became one of the regular performers on these services, often paired with its sister set and running hard up the East Coast Main Line. It passed through familiar places like Doncaster, Newark, and Peterborough, cutting a completely alien silhouette against the usual British intercity scene. Despite being built for Europe, it became a very British sight. Away from the main line, the set could also be seen moving through places like Camden Road, using North London routes to access depots and maintenance facilities. Another surreal image for anyone who caught sight of it. For passengers, the experience was memorable. These trains were built for long international journeys, and it showed. The ride was smooth, the interiors spacious, and the seating generous. Many people who travelled on White Rose services remember them as some of the most comfortable trains ever to run on the East Coast Main Line. But operationally, they were far from ideal. The length of the train caused immediate problems. Not all stations on the route could accommodate the full formation, so selective door operation had to be used. At some stops, passengers in the first or last coaches couldn't get off because the platforms were too short. Dwell times were longer than usual, and managing passenger flow became more complicated than on standard Class 91 sets. The trains were also heavy and power-hungry, placing extra demands on the electrical supply. On some routes, restrictions were imposed to ensure the network could cope. In simple terms, while the Eurostars were impressive, the Class 91 and Mark IV sets were better suited to the job they were doing. By late 2005, the experiment came to an end. The White Rose services were withdrawn when the leases expired, and GNER returned to a conventional East Coast mainline fleet. The Eurostar set moved on once again, going on to work high-speed services in France. And that's what makes this train so fascinating. The Eurostar set represents a railway future that almost happened. A regional international network that never left the drawing board. Instead, it became a luxury domestic express, loved by passengers, tolerated by operators, and remembered fondly by enthusiasts. A Eurostar that never went to Europe, but still carved out a unique place in British railway history. If you've enjoyed this story, please like the video, share it with a fellow rail enthusiast, and subscribe for more forgotten railway experiments, unusual trains, and the stories behind them.